The Other Gods, H.P. Lovecraft. The last of the explicitly Dunsian tales of Lovecraft's early period. The Other Gods was written on August 14th, 1921. It is the one story that attempts to imitate the cosmicism that is at the heart of Dunsany's early work, especially in The Gods of Picania, 1905, and The Time and the Gods in 1906. Lovecraft has deliberately established links with his previous Dunsian tales with such mentions as the Narcotic manuscripts from Polaris, Ulthar and the character Atal from the Cats of Uthar, and the like. It could be argued that his citation of other gods who lurk behind the mild gods of Earth anticipates the latter Cthulhu mythos. The story was first published in Fantasy Fan, November 1933. The Other Gods, H.P. Lovecraft. Atop the tallest of Earth's peaks dwell the gods of Earth, and suffer no man to tell that he hath looked upon them. Lesser peaks they once inhabited. But ever the men from the plains would scale the slopes of rocks and snow, driving the gods to higher and higher mountains, till now only the last remains. When they left their older peaks, they took with them all signs of themselves, save one, it is said, when they left a carven image on the face of the mountain which they called Granek. But now they have betaken themselves to unknown Codeth, in the cold wastes where no man treads, and are grown stern, having no higher peak, whereto to flee at the coming of men. They are grown stern, and where once they suffered men to displace them, they now forbid men to come, or coming to depart. It is well for men that they know not of Codeth in the cold waste, else they would seek injudiciously to scale it. Sometimes, when earth's gods are homesick, they visit in the still night the peaks where once they dwelt, and weep softly as they try to play in the olden way on remembered slopes. Men have felt the tears of the gods on white-capped Thuria, though they have thought it rain, and have heard the sighs of the gods in the plaintive dawn winds of Lyrion. In the cloud ships the gods are wont to travel, and wise cotters have legends that keep them from certain high peaks at night when it is cloudy, for the gods are not lenient as of old. In Uthar, which lies beyond the river sky, once dwelt an old man, avid to behold the gods of earth, a man deeply learned in the 7 cryptical books of San, and familiar with the Narcotic manuscripts of distant frozen Lomar. His name was Burzai the Wise, and the villagers tell of how he went up a mountain on the night of the strange eclipse. Burzai knew so much of the gods that he could tell of their comings and goings, and guessed so many of their secrets that he deemed half a god himself. It was he who wisely advised the burgesses of Uthar when they passed their remarkable law against the slaying of cats, and who first told the young priest Atal where it is that the black cats go at midnight on St. John's Eve. Burzai was learned in the lore of the earth's gods, and had gained a desire to look up their faces. He believed that his great secret knowledge of the gods could shield him from their wrath, so resolved to go up to the summit of high and rocky Hathig Claw on the night when he knew the gods would be there. Hathig Claw is far in the stony desert beyond Hathig, for which it is named, and rises like a rock statue in a silent temple. Around its peak the mists play always mournfully, for mists are the memories of the gods, and the gods loved Hathig Claw. when they dwelt upon it in the old days. Often the gods of earth visit Hathig Claw in their ships of cloud, casting pale vapors over the slopes as they dance, reminiscently on the summit under a clear moon. The villagers of Hathig say it is ill to climb Hathig Claw at any time, and deadly to climb it by night when pale vapors hide the summit and the moon. But Barzai heeded them not when he came from neighboring Uthar with the young priest Atal, who was his disciple and was the only son of an innkeeper and was sometimes afraid. But Barzai's father had been a landgrave who dwelt in the ancient castle, so that he had no common superstition in his blood, and only laughed at the fearful cotters. Barzai and Atal went out of Hathig into the stony desert despite the prayers of peasants, and talked of earth's gods by their campfires at night. Many days they traveled, and from afar saw lofty Hathig Claw with his aureole of mournful mists. On the 13th day they reached the mountain's lonely base, and Atal spoke of his fears, but Barzai was old and learned and had no fear, so led the way boldly up the slope that no man had scaled since the time of Sansu, who is written and with bright in the moldy Canotic manuscripts. The way was rocky and made perilous by chasms, cliffs, and falling stones. Later it grew cold and snowy, and Barzai and Atal often slipped and fell as they hewed and plodded upward with staves and axes. Finally, the air grew thin, and the sky changed color, and the climbers found it hard to breathe, but still they toiled up and up, marveling at the strangeness of the scene and thrilling at the thoughts of what would happen on the summit when the moon was out and the pale vapors spread around. For 3 days they climbed higher and higher and higher toward the roof of the world. Then they camped to wait for the clouding of the moon. For 4 nights no clouds came, and the moon shone down cold through the thin, mournful mists around the silent pinnacle. Then, on the 5th night, which was the night of the full moon, Barzai saw some dense clouds far in the north, and stayed up with Atal to watch them draw near. Thick and majestic, they sailed slowly and deliberately onward, ranging themselves round the peak high above. The watchers, and hiding the moon and the summit from view, for a long hour the watchers gazed, while the vapors swirled and the screen of clouds grew thicker and more restless. Barzai was wise in the lore of the earth's gods, and listened hard for certain sounds, but Atal felt the chill of the vapors and the awe of the night, and feared much, and when Barzai began to climb higher and beckon eagerly, it was long before Atal would follow. So thick were the vapors that the way was hard, and though Atal followed on at last, he could scarce see the gray shapes of Barzai on the dim slope above in the clouded moonlight. Barzai forged very far ahead, and seemed, despite his age, to climb more easily than Atal, fearing not the steepness that began to grow too great for any save a strong and dauntless man, nor pausing at wide black chasms that Atal scarce could leap. And so they went up wildly over rocks and gulfs, slipping and stumbling, and sometimes awed at the vastness and horrible silence of bleak ice pinnacles and mute granite steeps. Very suddenly Barzai went out of Atal's sight, scaling a hideous cliff that seemed to bulge outward and block the path for any climber not inspired of earth's gods. Atal was far below, and planning what he should do when he reached the place. When curiosity, he noticed that the light had grown strong, as if the cloudless peak and moonlit meeting place of the gods were very near, and as he scrambled on towards the bulging cliff, and Lichen sky he felt fears more shocking than any he had known before. Then through high mists he heard the voice of unseen Barzai shouting wildly in delight. I have heard the gods. I have heard Earth's gods singing in revelry on Hathig Claw. The voices of Earth's gods are known to Barzai the prophet. The mists are thin and the moon is bright, and I shall see the gods dancing wildly on Hathig Claw that they loved in youth. The wisdom of Barzai hath made him greater than the earth's gods, and against his will their spells and barriers are as naught. Barzai will behold the gods, the proud gods, the secret gods, the gods of earth who spurn the sight of men. Atal could not hear the voices Barzai heard, but he was now close to the bulging cliff and scanning it for footholds. Then he heard Barzai's voice grow shriller and louder. The mists are very thin, and the moon casts shadows on the slopes. The voices of Earth's gods are high and wild, and they fear the coming of Barzai the Wise, who is greater than they. The moon's light flickers as Earth's gods dance against it. I shall see the dancing forms of the gods that leap and howl in the moonlight. The light is dimmer, and the gods are afraid. While Barzai was shouting these things, Atal felt a spectral change in the air, as if the laws of earth were bowing to greater laws, for through the way was steeper than ever. The upward path was now grown fearsomely easy, and the bulging cliff proved scarce an obstacle when he reached it and slid perilously up its convex face. The light of the moon had strangely failed, and as Atal plunged upward through the mists, he heard Barzai the Wise shrieking in the shadows. The moon is dark and the gods dance in the night. There is terror in the sky, for upon the moon has sunk the eclipse, foretold in no books of men or of earth's gods. There is unknown magic on Hathig Claw, where the screams of the frightened gods have turned to laughter, and the slopes of ice shoot up endlessly into the black heavens, whither I am plunging. Hail, hail! At last in the dim light I behold the gods of earth. And now Atal, slipping dizzily up over inconceivable steeps, heard in the dark a loathsome laughing mixed with such a cry as no man else ever heard in the phlegethon of unrelatable nightmares. A cry wherein reverberated the horror and anguish of a haunted lifetime packed into an atrocious moment. The other gods, the other gods, the gods of the outer hells that guard the feeble gods of earth, look away. Go back, do not see the vengeance of the infinite abysses that curse that damnable pit. Merciful gods of earth, I am falling into the sky. And as Atal shut his eyes and stopped his ears and tried to jump downward against the frightful pull from unknown heights, there resounded on Hathig Claw a terrible peal of thunder, which awaked the good cotters of the plains and the honest burgesses of Hathig and Nur and Uthar, and caused them to behold through the clouds that strange eclipse of the moon that no book ever predicted. And when the moon came out at last, Atal was safe on the lower snows of the mountain, without sights of earth gods or the other gods. Now it is told in the moldy Akkadic manuscripts that Sansu found naught but wordless ice and rock when he climbed Hathig Claw in the youth of the world. Yet when the men of Uthar and Nur and Hathig crushed their fears and scaled that haunted steepies, By day, in the search of Barzai the Wise, they found graven in the naked stone of summit a curious encyclopean symbol 50 cubits wide, as if the rock had been riven by some titanic chisel. And the symbol was like to one that learned men have discerned in those frightful parts of the Narcotic manuscripts which are too ancient to read. This they found. Barzai the Wise they never found, nor could the holy priest Atel ever be persuaded to pray for his soul's repose. Moreover, to this day the people of Uthar and Nur and Hathik fear eclipses, and pray by night when pale vapors hide the mountain top of the moon, and above the mists on Hathik Claw Earth's gods sometimes dance reminiscently, for they know they are safe, and love to come from unknown Kadath in ships of cloud and play the olden ways, as they did when earth was new and men was not given to the climbing of inaccessible places.